participating with us today, and hope you find this particular webinar helpful in what you're doing. I'd like to begin to tell you just a little bit about who we are at Insolo. At Insolo, what we really to design systems in the areas of career development, employee transition, alumni, and absolutely with mentoring. We provide consulting services and strategic planning processes to help you ensure that your mentoring program is going to be successful and that you avoid some of those pitfalls that many times can come up when implementing a mentoring program. We also provide training. We do that in workshop formats, we do that in webinar formats, and we provide it for mentors, for mentees, for managers and supervisors, and program coordinators. And then to ensure that your mentoring program does not become an administration nightmare, we offer our software as a service technology. This allows you to do matching and pairing with your mentor and mentee participants, and it allows you to track and report and provide learning plans and all of the things, again, that make sure you're going to be able to very easily administer your mentoring program. So before we get started, Amanda, could you take us through our first poll, please?
I'd be happy to, Judy. So the first poll should be showing now on your screen. The question is, what are your biggest issues when it comes to your mentoring participants? Please select one answer. Is it A, getting them to understand what to do, getting them to understand why they're doing it, getting them to make time to do it, or getting their managers or supervisors to allow them the time to do it? Looks like we're getting a good number of responses. I'll go ahead and close the poll now. Judy, it looks like 18% of people who answered said that the problem is getting them to understand what to do. 3% said that the issue is getting them to understand why they're doing it. And a very large percentage, 67%, said the biggest issue is getting them to make time to do it. And 13% said the biggest issue was getting their managers and supervisors to allow them the time to do it. Can you speak to these results?
Certainly can. And again, that's going to be the topic of today's session. It's that 67% around time. We're also going to talk about the what, why of the manager in doing this, but we really want to concentrate on those 7 tips to get mentors and mentees to make time for mentoring and what they're doing. You know, the number one issue for everybody when they're asked if they'd like to participate in a mentoring program or a mentoring partnership is time. It is like that little gremlin that hits everyone's mind as soon as the topic comes up. Sure, you know, they give thought and they think about how great it would be to either have a mentor or be a mentor, but that issue of time kind of still lurks in the back of everybody's mind. You know, people are thinking, you know, do I have the time to do this? How much time is it going to take? You know, I feel stretched right now. Won't this make things worse? And then even after people are in the partnership and they go through training and they have 2 or 3 meetings with their mentor or mentee, that little gremlin pops up again. And the thoughts come about like, you know, I just don't have time today to meet with my mentor or mentee. I've got too many deadlines right now. Let's just put the meeting off until next week or, you know, when we can. And so on and so on and so on. Well, we aren't going to be able to put more hours in a day or put extra hours on the clock, but we are going to give you some tips that will address this issue and hopefully assist in overcoming or at least dealing with this issue of time as you go forward. Now, The first tip we're going to give you is make sure you position it. Position your mentoring program. The first thing that needs to take place, even before mentors and mentees are even thinking about participating in this program, is to position mentoring as a business strategy. You know, mentoring isn't just a warm, fuzzy, feel-good program. Mentoring is a business strategy, and it should be positioned as such, not just by the program administrator, but by senior levels of the organization as well. You know, the reason that this is important is really twofold. First of all, if it's positioned as a business strategy and there's objectives and measurements set to illustrate this, then senior management will more likely support the program and let it be known that they support it. But a very important second reason, if that is mentors and mentees are meeting and they're working on their partnerships, then they actually are working on business when they're doing this. This needs to be communicated from the very beginning, and then reminders need to be communicated on a regular basis so people don't forget that mentoring equals business. You need to remind them of this quite often in doing that. Now, tip number 2, make the commitment clear. The best way to position this as a strategy is to make sure that everyone's clear about what their responsibilities are in this strategy. Make sure that the individual in the role of mentors understands that he or she has a job description that they're expected to carry out. There's a level of responsibility here, and it's not a role that anybody should take lightly in what they're doing. Make sure the mentee understands also that they have a job and a job description, and it's their responsibility to drive that mentoring partnership. This is not a situation where the individual who's in the mentee role gets to sit back and get fed. The mentee has a very active and proactive role in the partnership, and it's important that he or she understands that driving that partnership is very important, and they need to understand what it looks like when they actually demonstrate that. Mentors and mentee also need to understand all of these responsibilities before anyone signs up to meet the role. Make sure that they understand the time commitment, how long the mentoring partnership is expected to last, the importance of creating and maintaining a type of plan, the importance of the mentee being very clear about exactly what it is that he and she wants to learn and the areas in which they want to develop. You know, you'd never ask anybody within your organization to take on a role that they were either not qualified for or had no idea what the role entailed. And let's not leave out the manager or the supervisor. And this being the manager or supervisor of both the mentor and mentee, this manager needs to understand that this is not something that he or she just hands over to somebody else and then they ignore it. The manager needs to demonstrate their support, and when it's important for the mentor and mentee to meet, the manager needs to honor this commitment. As an example of this, recently we have been going through a series of evaluations with an organization that we're working with. And we took them through mentor training, we took them through mentee training, and we took them through the manager training. And what that has allowed the organization to really be clear about and understand is when the mentee has a meeting scheduled with their mentor and their manager comes in and wants to meet with them about something, the mentee is able to say to the manager, "This is my time with my mentor." The manager understands, and they're all right with that and letting the mentee have that meeting. And the same thing we found is happening with the mentors. Someone who's in the mentor role, what they have been able to do is if they have a time that is scheduled to meet with their mentee and their manager comes in and says, I need to meet with you about something, they're able to say, this is my time that I meet with my mentee. And the manager understands, and those meetings take place. So it's real important that everybody understands the commitment going on. And then make sure there's regular check-ins to, ensure if there's any issues that in that partnership they get cleared up, and they get cleared up right away. Ensure there's no misunderstandings. These regular check-ins will ensure that the partnership stays on track. If issues arise in the partnership and there's no way to know what they are or even have a chance to correct them or even provide some advice or coaching on how to get them back on track, the mentor and mentee will stop meeting, and then they're going to use time as an excuse for what's happening. Now, the third tip that we have is communicate the benefits. The most effective way to get through the issue of time is to communicate the benefits of participating as a mentor or mentee and the overall benefits to the organization. Each individual, prior to making the decision to participate, must find out what their personal WIFMs are. And WIFMs are what's in it for me. They need to find these out for themselves. Without understanding the personal benefits to oneself, personal participation is just going to be lacking. The best way to begin this process is to provide training for all the individuals involved in the program. The mentor, the mentee, respective managers and supervisors, and the program administrator. Each individual still must find his or her own personal WIFMs or benefits, but providing training will allow prospective participants to understand maybe some additional benefits they hadn't even thought of. When we provide training to mentors and mentees, we actually have a type of list that we provide to them to kind of get their thinking process started. And whenever we go through this training, usually what we hear from the participants is, aha, I never even thought of that benefit as they were going on. And we've collected these benefits over a period of 23 years. So again, it's a thought starter, but it helps people to really think of all of the benefits that they might be going through as a mentor, a mentee, or the organization overall. Chances are whenever you ask someone to take on a new role within the organization, you make sure they get training on exactly what it is they're supposed to be doing. And then not only cover the benefits during the training, but allow time during that to address any concerns or issues. By doing this, you're able to make sure that you correct any misperceptions that exist and provide consistent information. Without this step of training, individuals begin to make up their own rules as to how to conduct the partnership. And then what's really important is after the training, continually find ways to reinforce those benefits in ongoing communications. Now, tip number 4, get the manager buy-in. Make sure that there is buy-in from the very beginning from the mentors or the mentees managers as to the importance of the mentoring program. Not only do you provide training for mentors and mentees, but you've got to provide training for the mentors. Allow them to discuss any issues they have regarding time and allow them to identify, again, those personal advantages or WIFMs for them as a manager and also what they perceive as those advantages for the individuals that report to them. This is going to ensure that managers will understand the time that the mentors and mentees will be spending on this development activity. This is one of the places many organizations drop the ball. What they do is they provide training for mentors and mentees, but they forget about the role of the manager and what the manager needs to be able to do to support these partnerships. Now, tip number 5, book the time up front. The most efficient way to ensure that time is going to take place between the mentor and mentee is have them identify up front exactly how often and under what conditions they are going to meet. Then it's important to get this on the calendar on a recurring basis so that other activities don't come in and take over that meeting time. You know, we all know what happens if we don't get some calendar on a recurring basis. Somebody's always going to fill our calendar up with something else. And in addition, think about it yourself. And when you've been involved in a project or some kind of committee, and, you know, the first couple of times that you're scheduled to meet, you know, it really does seem like something extra on your to-do list. But after the third or fourth time, it really becomes a habit. And you know that every other Wednesday, or you're going to meet with your mentor or mentee, or every third Thursday, whatever it might be. It really becomes a habit, and it doesn't think like, or begin to think like something, you know, extra in doing that. In addition to that, we believe each meeting should have an agenda so that the time the mentor and mentee are spending together is really valuable. And, you know, it's the most efficient way to do this. You know, that agenda can be as simple as saying, you know, here's what we talked about the last time. Here's what has been accomplished since we last communicated. And this is what I'd like to talk about the next time. This does a couple of things. First of all, it gives a check-in from the mentee to the mentor. And what it also does is it allows that mentor to be ready for that meeting. If there's any resources or any extra materials that the mentor could have in place, then, you know, what they could do is they've got them ready. How many times have you gone into a meeting yourself and you're sitting there in the meeting and you think, you know, if I just had known that's what this meeting was going to be about, I would have brought this report or paper or information or whatever. So make sure there's an agenda for each meeting and doing that. And also getting everybody to understand that a phone call or a video conferencing or Skype or any other way that you might be meeting, not only is it a very efficient way to meet, but those meetings need an agenda also. We have great ways in distance mentoring, and we work with organizations throughout the world in which you might have a mentee sitting in New Jersey and a mentor sitting in France in what we're doing. So distance mentoring, individuals get to know each other through video conferencing and Skype and these types of things, and they use pictures and they get to know each other just as if they were, you know, in the same office. Great way to do that. But if you've got this agenda and you book the time, it allows you to be able to plan for any contingencies that might come up in doing all this. Now, tip number 6, I love this, the ABC. Always be checking in. Never stop reinforcing everything we've talked about thus far and all the things that are there. This many times is where organizations really fail in the longevity and in the sustainability of their program, because they have great information on a kickoff and then they just let it drop. Have continual check-ins with the mentor and mentee pairs to not only reinforce all the things that we've talked about, but also to find out if there's any issues that have come about that sometimes are being used as excuses for not meeting. You know, based on research, one of the reasons that mentoring programs fail is that inability to be able to go to someone if the partnership isn't working. Because if there's an issue, people are going to make up their own rules. And many times what happens is they're wrong in doing this. So make sure if there's any chance there's any problem, you always know that because you're always checking in and you're able to catch any issues that come up right away. And our last tip, be ready. Both the mentor and the mentee are going to go into this partnership with very best intentions. You know, but things come up. Things that are unexpected come up. So if this happens, it's important that both the mentor and mentee understand that they can contact the program administrator as soon as possible and get reassigned to a new mentoring partner. If there is an issue in the mentoring partnership, everybody needs to understand that there's a bit of a no-fault policy that is connected to these partnerships. And what that basically means is that if there's a problem, that doesn't mean the mentor's wrong and the mentee's right. Doesn't mean the mentee's right and the mentor's wrong. It just didn't work out for some reason, whatever that might be. But it's important for both the mentor and the mentee and their managers and everyone else in the organization to understand that if it doesn't work out, it's okay to get rematched and reassigned to a different mentor and mentee. So, to sum it all up, be sure to position mentoring as a business strategy and make sure you remind everybody of this often. Make sure everyone's clear about their role and what's expected of them, including those time commitments, all those things that will enter their mind. You know, each individual really needs to understand what those personal benefits and WIFMs are for them and find out what's important to them, whether it's the mentor, the mentee, or the manager. But make sure everybody understands those. Make sure you've got that manager's buy-in, both the manager of the mentee and the manager of the mentor. Make sure those managers understand their role in those mentoring partnerships and all the advantages that they're going to get out of it as a manager, as well as the advantages that will come to the people that report to them. Book that time up front. Make sure you've got it on the calendar on a recurring basis. One of the things that both a mentor and a mentee can do to really demonstrate to each other how seriously they take this mentoring partnership and their commitment to them is making sure that they keep these meetings and they show up on time to the meetings. That's difficult to do if you haven't got those meetings on your calendar on a recurring basis, because again, we all know that if they're not on the calendar on a recurring basis, you know, something always comes in to take their place. And then always be checking in. Don't just drop your communications after that big program kickoff. Have continual check-ins to ensure that any issues that might be coming up between the mentor and mentee are addressed right away. And last, be ready. Be ready for any contingencies. And, you know, if you've done those check-ins and that ABC, you're going to know what those contingencies and possible problems are ahead of time in doing that. But remember, if there are problems and the mentor and the mentee need to be rematched, be sure everybody understands that this is okay. It just didn't work out. There's a fault policy, and everybody needs to contact the program administrator to be rematched in what they're doing. There's others out there that can be advantage to a certain mentor. There are others out there that can get more out of it as a mentee if they were in a different mentoring partnership. So what I'd like to do now is, Amanda, will you take us through our next poll?
I'd be happy to. We'd like to check in with you and see what you think of these tips and your ability to better get your mentors and mentees to make more time for mentoring now that you've heard them. Please select one. Yes, you'll be able to get your mentees and mentors to make more time now. Or maybe you'll just have to try it out and see what works and doesn't work for you. Or no, you just really need more hours in the day, which is entirely possible. Let's give it a little bit more time. Looks like we've got some great responses. Go ahead and close that out now. Judy, it looks like a resounding 39% say yes, they will definitely be able to get their mentees and mentors to make more time for mentoring. And a larger 58% says maybe we'll just have to see what works, which is fair enough. And just about 3% said no, we just need more hours in the day. Do you want to speak to those results?
Absolutely, and I really like that. I'm glad that we've got that large percentage that says yes, they're going to be able to use some of the things that we've given them today. You know, I mentioned to you up front, there really isn't any way that I can give you more hours in a day in what you're doing, and you know, I can't put more hours on the clock, but we do hope that the tips that we were able to give you will indeed help you in what you're doing. So Amanda, if we can go to our slides.
Our questions and answers. Be happy to take you through some of those. So we've got a few really great...
hold on, hold on just 1 second. Let me get through one more thing. I'm
Sure.
sorry, Amanda.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah, we do want to know what you think. We are going to get to a question and answer, but we want to know your thoughts. So, you know, we welcome you to join us on our LinkedIn Mentoring Thought Leaders Club that we have created. And, you know, if you join us on LinkedIn, you'll get a copy of today's slides, a link to the recording, and we always have a discussion after each of our webinars to get your input on what we're doing. You're always able to contact us on our website or to call us at our various phone numbers in the U.S. or the U.K. and what we're doing. And one more thing we wanted to mention to you is the fact that for those of you that are already have gotten information about ATTD since they've changed their name, and the conference that's going to be in Orlando in May 2015, we are going to be there. And we will be giving some talks around mentoring. We're specifically going to focus on mentoring for multi-generational communication development and succession in doing that. So we would really look forward to seeing you there. Yes, so now what I'd like to do is get it to our question and answer. So can you take us through some of the questions we've gotten, Amanda?
Be more than happy to. So it looks like our first question up is, what do you suggest for mentoring programs that have many more mentees than mentors?
And this is a common situation, happens with everybody in doing that. One of the things that we talk about mentoring is the fact that there are so many historical misperceptions around mentoring in doing that. And one of those historical misperceptions is around the role of the mentor. And many times individuals feeling like, you know, if I sign up to be a mentor, this is going to be a lifetime commitment. And talk about not having time. I just don't have time to do that. But if you will set some boundaries in that role description I talked about and letting people know ahead of time what the time commitment is and saying, you know, this is not a lifetime commitment. I need you to commit for, you know, 10 months or 12 months, whatever it might be. Then you've made it a little more realistic and somebody can kind of deal with that. And you'll find that is your best way then to get mentors to really apply to be a mentor, qualify to be a mentor, because they've got a better understanding of exactly what is going to be expected of them. It's that unknown or making up their own idea as to what it's going to be that will make the difference.
Great, thank you so much for that answer. Looks like the next question is, how much should HR get involved while still keeping confidentiality in terms of things like asking for agendas and asking for reports on what's going on in the mentoring program?
I think you kind of walk a tightrope there. HR normally is the administrator, and many times that's what we find in the mentoring program. As far as reporting, then I think there's a lot of things you can report, the kinds of goals and objectives that people are working on, the percentage, of those, how they are, working towards meeting those business goals and objectives, because this is a business strategy. Those types of things, checking in to make sure that they are, kind of following all the things. We believe you should. Part of those check-ins in many ways can be an evaluation in what you're doing. Now, part of what we do in going through this with clients, when we do the evaluations, we are quite clear about the fact that when we, actually go through our discussions with mentors and mentees, everything is confidential that's reported. But we do report the results. So the point is, if we've got individuals and John Jones is the mentor and Pat is the mentee, then, and there's something specific that does need to be identified and reported, we will do that, but we don't mention that John is the mentor and Pat's the mentee and this is where it came from. So you've got to keep the confidentiality at that point or you're not going to get any honest feedback. But you do need to report, and you've got to check with your senior management. What do they need to know? You've got to have your own reports to know how you might want to improve the program overall. So I think it's really both. You've got to report things, but you've got to keep the confidentiality.
Great. Looks like we've got another question about people who are struggling with how to check in. For that tip, would you suggest always using the same forum such as email, or would you bring mentors and mentees together to talk about it? What would you suggest there?
Most of the time I do not suggest you bring the mentors and mentees together. The reason for that is because it's just like the training. We don't train mentors and mentees together. And the reason for that is because if a mentor has an issue specifically with their mentee, and maybe they're coming to the group and brainstorming how to handle it, they don't want that happening right in front of their mentee in doing this. I think doing it in a group session, doing it in emails, there's a lot of different ways you can gather the data in being able to do those check-in. Doesn't hurt every once in a while just to make a phone call and actually have a discussion and usually what we do is if we're going to call someone, we usually set a time to do that. We publish the questions that we're going to ask during that time, so there's no big secrecy, as to what it is we're going to be doing. But I, check in personally with them, or if you are able to have group discussions, whether it's in a webinar format or getting everybody together face to face, that's really great. But make sure that you don't put the mentors and mentees together. You're liable not to get everything that you want to know in being able to do that.
Great. It looks like we have time for just one more question. How would you say that is the best way to ensure the quality of the mentoring program? Would it be more around selecting mentors carefully and training mentors, or something else?
One of the things when we go through our strategic planning workshops and really helping organizations to make sure they've got everything in place to ensure you've got a good, solid process and methodology and your program's going to be successful. There's a couple of things that we absolutely talk about. One is, I mentioned it before, you've got to tie this to business objectives and you've got to be able to measure results. But in addition to that, one of the things that I usually say to organizations is it is very, very important to qualify your mentors. You can't just let anybody be a mentor, because it takes very different skills to be a mentor than many people have in doing that. And in fact, usually what I talk about is the fact that the success of your mentoring program is going to highly, and I may say that several times, but highly depend on the quality of your mentors in doing this. We believe a mentor is an individual who's got knowledge or experience and is willing and able to share that knowledge and experience with another. And the two most important words in that definition are willing. They're going to make the commitment to that mentee's development, and able. And the able means they actually have the skills to be a mentor, those relationship skills, the communication skills, all those types of things that actually are important in just implementing the role of a mentor.
Fantastic. Well, it looks like we're about out of time. Judy, do you have any final thoughts for us?
No, as I mentioned, except that, I hope these tips have been helpful. One of the things I will tell you is that if there are any problems in the mentoring partnerships or somebody doesn't understand their role, or the time is such a convenient excuse. And it's the best one and the fastest one they can come up with. So sometimes what you have to do is when somebody says, I just don't have the time, is to find out if that really is their reason for not meeting, or something wrong in the partnership, or is there something else. So be on the lookout for that. Don't let time be an excuse in what you're doing. But I'd like to thank everybody for your participation and your questions, and we look forward to having you in future webinars.
Great. Thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. If you'd like a copy of today's slideshow or a recording of today's webinar, you can find links to both on our Mentoring Thought Leaders group page on LinkedIn later today. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to email us at info@insolo.com. We very much value your feedback on our webinars. Thank you again so much for coming, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.